Okay, gotta admit, when we said we'd be diving into the world of import-export, I wasn't picturing office furniture.
Right. Not the most glamorous image.
But these materials you sent over, this career guide, it's like import-export specialist in office furniture. There's gotta be more to it than meets the eye, right?
Absolutely. It's a perfect example, actually. Think about it. Something as ordinary as the chair you're sitting on. That chair is like a mini history lesson in global trade.
And this guide dives deep. We're not just talking about like where to stamp a customs form. Now, there's a good bit of that too. This gets into the nitty-gritty of regulations, international deals, the whole shebang.
Exactly. And what surprised me was the level of responsibility, even at the entry level. I mean, you're not just shuffling papers. You can be fresh out of school and be responsible for making sure a shipment of desks from, say, Italy meets all the import regulations here in the U.S.
No kidding. I was surprised by that too. It's not just about knowing where to ship things either. This guide lists a whole bunch of skills, and some of them are, well, unexpected, like active listening, useful everywhere, I guess, but essential here.
Absolutely. You need that meticulous side to get all the details right, all those forms and regulations. But you also need the people skills to negotiate with suppliers, to build relationships, even to navigate cultural differences. Imagine, accidentally offending a supplier because you missed some cultural cue. Could make or break a deal.
It's like being a diplomat, but for desks. I love it. Though, speaking of, let's be real, this guide doesn't sugarcoat things. Long hours, tight deadlines, unreliable suppliers. Sounds like it has its stressful moments.
That's global trade for you. Anything can happen. But that's where the problem solving comes in. Plus, there's potential for travel, experiencing other cultures. Definitely not your average desk job.
Okay, now that's tempting. Trading spreadsheets for a taste of adventure, even with a few logistical headaches thrown in.
Right. And speaking of different cultures, one of the things you shared that article about global supply chains, it had this great example. A shipment was totally delayed because of some local festival. Wasn't even on the usual calendar. Someone who's really culturally aware, they might have anticipated that, saved everyone a bunch of hassle.
That's fascinating. It's not just about the rules, it's about understanding the context, the culture behind the business. Makes you think. Speaking of which, this guide really surprised me with the whole career progression thing. You can actually climb the ladder from entry level all the way up to like import-export manager. Sounds impressive, right?
It does have a ring to it, and it's not just a straight ladder either. Maybe you specialize in a region or a particular type of product, or you become the go-to consultant, helping businesses navigate all the ins and outs of international trade.
So not just a job, whole career path. But okay, I can hear someone listening right now thinking, all very interesting, but what does this have to do with me? And it's a fair question. Even if you're not about to start shipping desks across the ocean, global trade, it affects us all.
Think about it. Your phone, that coffee you had this morning, chances are they've been touched by the import-export world at some point on their journey to you.
We see the coffee, the phone, but yeah, we don't think about all the steps it took to get here.
It's like this whole hidden world. And even just knowing a little bit about it, it changes your perspective, makes you appreciate all those connections.
Absolutely. It's like lifting the curtain. And speaking of connections, this guide got into the whole education and experience side of things.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like knowing how to read a shipping label.
Nope. It emphasized having a good foundation in international trade, logistics, maybe even a little bit of law wouldn't hurt, a degree in international business, supply chain management, stuff like that. It definitely give you a head start.
So not just learning about tariffs, but like the whole ecosystem of global commerce. Sounds intense.
Yeah, but think about it. It's pretty cool too, right? I mean, who knew there was so much to learn about getting a desk from point A to point B?
Right. And for those who really want to level up, the guide mentions certifications too. Certified Custom Specialist, CES, things like that.
Yeah, those are like the gold standard. Shows you've really gone deep, mastered all those little details. But of course, it's not all about the books. Experience counts for a lot too.
Makes sense. You can read about negotiating with suppliers all day long, but nothing beats actually doing it, even if it's over, like a shipment of ergonomic office chairs.
Exactly. And that's where internships come in, entry-level positions. You get your hands dirty, figure out how it all works in the real world.
Right, you bridge that gap between the textbook and, well, the trading floor, I guess. And as you gain experience, you move up. The guide had a whole section on that, different career stages, starting from entry level, lots of focus on documentation, coordination, all the way up to import-export manager.
Which, let's be honest, it's a pretty cool title to have.
I know, right? Import-export manager has a nice ring to it. What's that like day to day, though?
Well, you're not just focused on individual shipments anymore. You're looking at the big picture, managing teams, building relationships with suppliers, even anticipating future demand.
So it becomes less about logistics and more about strategy? That's a big shift.
It is. And speaking of shifting, one thing the guide really stressed was staying ahead of the curve. This isn't a field where you can just learn it once and you're done.
New regulations, trade agreements, technology changing all the time.
Exactly. That's why it emphasized things like reading industry publications, going to trade shows.
Which I gotta say, those sounded kind of fun, not like your average boring conference.
They're a great way to network, meet people, stay updated on the latest trends. Who knows, you might bump into your next business partner while debating the finer points of, customs documentation over a cup of coffee.
Right. Learn something, make a connection. It all comes back to that, doesn't it? Building those relationships. This guide really hammers that point home.
Yeah, your network is everything in this field.
Yeah.
Suppliers, logistics providers, even your fellow import-export specialist. You're all in this together. It's a team effort.
It takes a village to get that desk delivered. But okay, I want to shift gears a bit here. We've talked a lot about the skills, the education, but what about the person? Like, what kind of personality thrives in this world? What are we talking about? Someone who loves spreadsheets, thrives on organization.
I mean, those don't hurt. But it's more than that.
Someone who can handle the pressure, right? When a shipment's stuck in customs because, I don't know, someone forgot to cross their stuff on a form, they don't just, lose it.
Exactly. Grace under pressure is a big one. Things move fast.
Yeah.
Unexpected problems pop up. You got to be able to roll with the punches. But you're right. It's not just about staying calm. It's also about those details. Remember how the guide kept emphasizing that?
Oh, yeah. One wrong digit on a customs form and boom, delays, fines, the whole shipment's in limbo.
It's high-stakes detail work.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, you've got technology changing everything.
Right. Blockchain, digital platforms, it's like the whole industry is being reshaped.
And that's exciting. You could be negotiating a deal the old-fashioned way one minute, then analyzing data on some cutting-edge logistics platform the next.
So you need that blend. Someone who's comfortable with both sides of it.
Absolutely. Those who can adapt, who are even excited about learning new systems, they're the ones who'll really thrive.
It's like the perfect blend of, I don't know, international intrigue and high-tech problem solving.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, any final takeaways for our listeners? What do you think?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is this is way more than just desks and chairs. It's this whole hidden world, complex, global, and honestly kind of cool.
Right. It touches everything. The phone in your pocket, that cup of coffee.
It's all connected. And even if this isn't, your dream career, just understanding the basics, it gives you a whole new perspective.
Totally agree. It's about appreciating that interconnectedness, how it all fits together.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive. This career guide, it wasn't what I expected, but I gotta say, fascinating stuff.
It really was. Proof that even the most ordinary seeming things can open up a whole world of knowledge.
Well said. And for our listeners, if you're feeling inspired, remember, the import-export world, it goes way beyond just office furniture. Think about something you use every day, something you take for granted.
That cup of coffee, that smartphone.
Exactly. Trace its journey back. You might be surprised where it takes you. Until next time, keep those curiosity gears turning.